there you are. Welcome to the studio. So it's been a little while since I put a video out. I'm sorry about that. I've been super busy. I'm back and ready to make a video with you. So tonight we're painting in Hibiscus. Here it is. I'm going to tell you more about that in just a second, but let's get ready to paint. I'm ready to go. I hope you're ready to go. Let's do it. Alright, so here we go. I've got my picture. I got it from pmpart.com, the photography and art website where you can share pictures for people to paint and your paintings with people who took the pictures. This one was taken by Anne Marie 1, I believe. It's, of course, a hibiscus. There it is. I'm going to set it off to the side. I did a little practice of it earlier. This is kind of what it's going to turn out like. This was just a quick thing. Got some good things on here that I'm going to take from it, and hopefully we'll be able to do something like that. So here's my drawing of it that I did a few moments ago, and I just want to go through some of the basics. I'm using Strathmore 400-pound paper. This one is 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches, 140 pound. I'm going to be using my M-gram paints in one of my new travel tins. Going to be using some Princeton Snap brushes. This is, what do I have here? I've got a 6, a 2, and a 2 liner. I think that I'm going to be using all of those. And a Prismacolor colored pencil. This one just happens to be grass green. And I think that's what we need to do to get started. And here we go. Let's just jump in with it. So I'm going to move my palette around this way so I can see exactly what colors I'm using over here. I'm going to go with Pyrrole Red. Just going to mix a little bit of that up. And what I want to do, if I look at my picture, what I want to do is put it in a thicker concentration here and let it blend out to the sides. All of the petals, much darker in the center, much lighter almost all the way out to the edges, and then a couple of them darker at the edges themselves. So we're going to kind of try to follow that. And what I want to do is just with a little bit of color on there. Partially so that you will be able to see it, and partially so that I fill up each petal with a little bit of water. And I want the paint to be able to flow in here pretty nicely. So I'm just going to paint this petal, and it's going to get a little bit pink, and we're going to use that to our advantage here, coming up pretty quickly. Okay, so I've got it nice and wet there. It's probably be a little bit wetter than I want. I'm going to take a little bit of that water off, and I'm going to come in with just a little thicker. Whoa, now I'm off camera that way. There we go. How about that? I've got just a little thicker solution there, and I'm just going to drop this in. There we go, and let that run all the way out wherever it wants to. Like I said, I got a little bit too much water. I can dab just a little bit of that off. I'm going to let that color run out mostly all the way. In fact, I took a little too much off now. I got to re-wet. That's no big deal. You know my theory of watercolors, everybody else's, is that, oh, they're so tough to use, you can't do anything. Once you make a mistake, you're done with it. They're so hard. And my theory is, are you kidding me? Watercolors, you can do anything you want to with. These are great. So I've just gotten a little bit of that color off of there, and just darkened up a little bit in here. I don't want to make this too dark right now. We'll come back and make the center of this just a little bit darker, but I want to have a nice color gradient from the inside all the way to the outside. And the reason I don't want this too dark in here quite yet is because I want to see how the rest of the colors turn out. I came outside the lines here a little bit. I just tried to dab that up, and I couldn't dab it up. Not a big deal. We'll figure it out in just a minute. Alright, I'm going to leave that one alone. Alright, so I'm going to leave this. Actually, I'm not going to leave that alone. I can't leave that alone. I'm going to come in and I'm going to draw just some basic lines here. These are going to be the basis for my veins. Just a few. I know they're not going to be perfect. They're probably going to thin down quite a bit. You're not going to be able to see all of these when we're done with this painting, and I don't think that's going to matter because we're going to go back over it. These will lighten up so much that when we go back over it, those will really be kind of a secondary line in there, and that's okay because when I did my first one, I ended up going over it several times, and I think the number of times that I went over it, it just kept getting a little bit better and a little bit better, and I'm going to just let it do that as it wants to. So I'm going to put a little bit of color in the leaf, two petals over. Oops. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to grab this and draw a lot of this color way out. Let this come way out. In fact, I'm going to push a little of it back in there. And you can do that. The paper is wet, so the paint is going to flow. And it'll flow both ways. If you push a little hard, I don't know if you can see that. Let's see, if you push a little bit hard, you can make a mark in there. But if you don't, you can go right over that and push that paint right up anywhere you want it to go. So just be a little careful with that. I'm going to just dab a little bit extra there. There we go. I think that looks good. That looks really nice. Now you can see it's really dark in the center. We're going to have to work to get the petal we've done up there back to that. All right, so now I've got, well, I guess I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't do this one. That one's wet. I can't do that one. Both of these are wet. And I can't do that one. That one's wet. So I'll go and do a leaf. Okay, perfect. Let's see. I'm going to go with some Hansa yellow here. Just a little bit. I'm going to put it in the center of my leaves because I want a little bit of a highlight in there. And that yellow is going to give me that. And then I'm going to go into my sap green, just a regular old sap green. There we go. I'm going to try to draw in some of the teeth on this petal. If I get them all, great. If I don't get them all, great. It's not that big of a deal. I'm not painting to be a super realist. Anyways, I don't draw like I'm a super realist, so I don't paint like I'm a super realist. And so if I get some of the teeth in the end of this leaf, fantastic. If I don't get any, that's fine too. That's not going to really bother me a whole lot. I'm going to take a little bit of my phthalo green, and I'm just going to put it at this end and blend that in a little bit. I just want to give maybe just a little indication of a shadow in there, just a little bit, and that's going to help me achieve that later on. Whoa, you can't see, I'm mixing off here, and I just dabbed in quite a bit of that, more than I really wanted. There we go. I think that leaf looks pretty good. Now I'm going to skip down to the big leaf down here. I'm going to do the same thing, go through the same process. You can't see, there we go. My Hansa yellow, just going to drop a little bit in here wherever I think there might be, you know, a little bit of more light on that. Go back into my sap green. Get just a little bit of water there. There we go. And I'm just painting everything except for the leaf on top of this one. Just right on around the whole thing. There we go. Whoa. Get a little color in there. That might be a little stronger than I want. Oh, that's better. A little bit thinned it right out. Good, good, good. I'm gonna drop down to my number 2 brush, and I'm gonna put a little bit of this phthalo green on here. And I just realized I drew this a little while ago, and I was trying to paint my other painting as a little test to see if it was going to work out for me, to see if I could do this in a reasonable amount of time. And I seem to have left a lot of space in between these, between the flower and the leaves, but that's all right. It's still going to work out real nice. Okay, I'm going to leave that petal just like that. I'm going to go back to my little bit larger brush, and I'm going to get this petal wet. All right, just like that. I've got just a little bit of green on my brush here, which I'm hoping isn't going to cause too much trouble. If you get a little bit of green on your brush as you're painting red, well, green and red are opposites on the color wheel, and so it's really going to dull it down. You're going to end up with kind of a gray mixture, so I'm hoping that this is not going to do that. Alright, in contrast to these ones over here, I'm going to put a little bit of this red on out there. Then I'm going to make my red a little bit thicker and put it on. There we go. And then I'll just help that to blend out a little bit. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to drop down to my rigger brush, pick up a little bit of my red in here, and just do the same thing I did. I dropped my brush. Do the same thing I did over here, and I'm off camera again. My knuckle went right into there. We're going to let it go. Hope for the best. It'll be fine. It'll all be fine. It'll work out. Just making a few veins in here. You can take from the inside and pull out this way. If you can do it that way, you can take it from the inside and pull out. You just have to remember to stop at the end out here. Sometimes I get a little carried away and shoom, shoom, right off the painting I go, and then I end up with red lines everywhere, and that's not good. Okay, so I've got that one done. I have obviously touched some paint somewhere. If you give me 1 second to wipe that off. I'm not sure where I got that from, but it's quite sticky. All right. Oh, I know exactly where I got it from. Right on the side of my finger. Holy cow. How did I get that? All right. Onward and upward. I'm going to paint this petal the same way we did the other ones. I'm just going to get it just wet, just a little damp. And instead of just going straight into my red mixture, I'm going to put a little bit of my Hansa yellow in there and just change that ever so slightly. I don't want to change it a lot, but a little bit would be good. And I'm gonna color my outside with a nice pale wash out here. There we go. And then a little bit more concentrated bit of color right in there. And then if I don't want it to go out quite that far, I can just push that around that little bit. And now I have to find my rigger. And I'm going to go in, I'm going to draw a few veins. Now notice I'm not drawing, or I'm trying not to draw these veins as straight lines. I don't want them to be straight. I want them to move. I want it to look like this petal has some real curvature to it. Right? Like it's folding over. That's what I want to see out of that. That's why I'm drawing all of these with just a slight curve on them. Nothing straight there. See, I'm going to try and do this one. That petal is still just a little bit wet, but I think we're going to be able to get away with this. Let's see. Just push some of this color around a little bit. There we go. Just take off a little bit of the excess. I can see it right now. It's a little too shiny. There we go. That's good. And again, just coming back with a really nice soft wash way out here. And that's going to fade and get lighter as it dries. You can see this one, the one I forgot to put some veining on, is already really light. So if you want your petals to be a little darker, now we can come in and we can darken that up a little bit. That's not a big deal. But if you want your petals to start and be a little bit darker right from the beginning, go ahead and make them a little bit darker, and don't worry about it. They won't get this dark, and then maybe you don't have to go back and do a second layer, or your second layer might be able to be a little bit lighter if that's the way you want to do it. There's lots of different ways you can paint this painting. This is just one of them. Let's see, I want to get a little line, a little dark line right there. There we go. Actually, I left a little bit of white in there. I left a little bit more white than I wanted to. I've got a little bit of white in a couple of places here. And so we can do a couple of different things with that. We can leave those white spaces and not worry about them. We can go over them now with a very light wash. And or we could just wait and go over them on the second layer, and it'll still be fine. You know, we got lots of different ways we can do it. All right, so now I'm just coming back and doing my last leaf here, and I'm okay if this leaf is a little bit lighter in the front here. I don't want it to be quite as dark, and that's also the reason why I went ahead and put that phthalo blue on this leaf, because I want it to be a little bit bluer, right? A little bit more cold color, and that should push it back a little bit. If I leave this leaf in front a little bit lighter and a little bit less blue, even if I'm shading, even if I'm trying to make this look round, right, and I leave that highlight, that yellow, in the middle, I just need to make it not be as cold a color as the leaf behind it, and we'll be pretty good. Okay, so we're done with our first layer now. Most of that flower is pretty dry. I'm going to push my luck, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to put in some extra color on my petals here. And I'm going to start with I'm looking to see what's the most wet. I think I'll start with this one and then come to this one, and then I'll go back to leaves. Kind of the same pattern I did before. Actually, you know what? Because I need to re-wet this, and I can feel it with the back of my hand. It's still fairly cold. What I'm going to do is put this on the dryer for just a second. I'll be right back. Okay, here we are. I am back. We are totally dry now. So let's do it. I'm going to re-wet my area. I put a very thin layer on, and if I wet this pretty quickly, I'm pretty confident that it's not going to run anywhere. It doesn't appear as though it will, which is good news for us. So I'm going to start by really intensifying my color right down here. Got just a touch right over there that I can do. There we go. I really like that. Nice and intense color. There we go. And now before I do anything else, I did wet all the way out there. I just want to make a few extra nice, big, sweeping veins coming down here. Now, this has a jagged edge along the side, and it does in our photo too. And what you can do to help with the shading of that is every time you see a big change in direction of the edge, does that make sense? That doesn't even make sense. Where it crinkles in, you could put in an extra line in there, and when somebody looks at it, they'll look at it and they'll see, oh, that's coming out of a little shadow. That's all it is. And then you'll go, yes, that's exactly what I meant to do. That's just how I planned it out. And then you don't have to worry about painting exactly like the picture shows. Now this one we're going to have a little extra work to do, because somebody, and I'm pointing the finger straight at me, forgot to put our veins on this one. So we'll get to see exactly what the difference looks like. Let me just turn this for a moment. We'll get to see exactly what the difference looks like from having put on the veins on the first go around and only on the second go around both. I would love to say I meant to do that, but I didn't. But it's going to work out anyways. It always does. Always works out in the end. I'm just putting a little extra down here, a little extra color, where to me, there we go, where to me the end of this leaf has folded over. It's started to go into a little bit of shadow down there. So just a little bit, not a lot. I'm going to come up and get my sap green now. And I'm usually, I should say, I'm purposely trying to use a little bit less water on this go round and spread it around maybe a little bit more quickly. So I really don't want to pull any of that first layer of color off. I just want to go and add to it a little bit. Darken it up just a touch, maybe retouch the edges just ever so slightly, something like that. I am gonna give myself a little shadow line right there. That looks good. That looks good. Now we have a little bit of texture on that leaf. I hope you can see that. I'm going to add a little bit of water onto this one. There was already just a little bit of green on my brush. There's going to be a little bit more green here. And on this one, I'm going to be sure to add a little bit of my phthalo green back up here to darken this up. And if you really wanted to darken it up, you could put some additional blue in it. There's some ultramarine or some, you know, whatever kind of blue you wanted to, cold blue. Or you could mix in a little bit of Payne's Gray if you're so inclined to use Payne's Gray. You know, there's lots of different ways you could do this. This is just one way that I'm doing it right now. If I were to do this whole thing tomorrow, I might do it a totally different way. So there we go. We got that center line in there. I'm not too worried about this one. Maybe I'll come back to that. Maybe I am a little bit worried about that one, but we'll come back to that. Okay, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do my other petals. I'm going to, that's pretty dry. I'm going to do this one right next to it and then these two. There we go. And really quickly with the water. There we go. And just being bold with this color here. Just put it on a little bit thick. There it goes. If you know it's nice and thick there, it's going to run that little bit because we're putting it into or onto a wet surface. So it's going to just blend and give us that beautiful smooth edge. There we go. Just something like that. I think that's pretty good. I might want to put just a little bit of shadowing underneath here. And I'm not really putting shadow, right? I'm just putting little extra bits of color down here. But when somebody looks at it, they'll go, oh, there's extra color there. That leaf, that petal is curled right around. And you will have done it in no time flat. You'll look like a genius for having done it. And it was so simple and so easy. There we go. I want to draw my veins on here pretty quickly. There we go. So those will be interesting. These last two here are the ones we forgot to draw our veins on. I say we. There's really only one of us who forgot to do that. I'm sure you all were sitting there telling me, don't forget to do that. It's sitting right there. You have to be able to see it, and I didn't. And that's my fault. And just this little edge here, we're hoping that this is going to pull right out a little bit. There we go. Just so it looks like it curls over that little bit. And we have one to do. And actually, this one doesn't look too bad at all right now. I think what I'm going to do is just wet out here. I'm going to leave that red on the inside the way it is. I like the intensity of that as it is. I'm just going to draw a few extra veins here. And I'm going to, I don't know, all of a sudden, I should look at the time. All of a sudden I feel rushed. I don't know if I'm taking too long or what. Just want to draw a little bit on here. It doesn't matter, we're almost done. anyways, just a little bit extra. Take that little bit in the center off to leave a nice little highlight. There we go. That looks good. And now I'm going to mix up my red, and I'm using the Pyrrol red, and I'm going to mix in some yellow. I want this to be a bit more orangey, but not completely orange. Just a bit more orangey and pretty intense, because I've got to make this stamen, I think that's what the name of it is, stand out from the rest of this flower. I'm just going to draw it in. One nice intense line right there in the center. There it is. And I think I made that strong enough that we'll be able to see that. And we're going to come back in just a second and draw the little filaments on the end of it. Now my leaves aren't quite dry enough. While I'm waiting, should we do a background on here? Why not? Right? Why not? Let's do it. I am going to make this just a simple kind of a background, a dark background. Now normally I would like to do green all around this flower because it's red, and that would really help it to stand out. But I don't want to do it all green because I'll take away my leaves somehow. I know I will if I do that. And my picture, my reference picture, is got a pretty dark area around here. So I think what I'm going to do is just my old modeled background that I like to do, but with some green and some Payne's gray in it. And we'll call that good. Just a quick little background going around here. We'll throw in a little bit of this phthalo green along with it. And if we have to use it too, that'll help us cover up a little bit on the edges out here if we didn't do such a good job of painting really right inside the lines, which I will admit to being guilty too a lot of the times, not painting exactly inside the lines. That's okay if you paint with me. That is not always a detractor. Sometimes that helps you come up with your best stuff. And since we're not worrying too much about how we do this, I'm just going to flip this around. Mostly just waiting for this other stuff to dry anyways. I don't think I told you. Oh, I told you I was using my snap brushes, and now I've grabbed this brush. To tell you the truth, I don't know what this brush is. The label has worn off of it, but it's a similar brush. It's quite nice. It's got a nice, tackle-on bristles, and holds a nice bit of water. It's a really nice brush, but I couldn't tell you who the manufacturer is. I wish I could. There we go. That's kind of standing out a little bit. Our leaves over here are going to fade into the background maybe just a bit because, well, they're green and we're painting green around them. We're not going to worry too much about that because those aren't the main focus of our painting anyways. Our main focus is here, our hibiscus. There we go, and this will just take me a second to finish this up. A little bit of water, a tiny bit more paint. Let's see, in here, I might have to go to a slightly smaller brush. I'll go back to my size 8, the one I was using, which is, for this size painting, a size 8 brush I think is a really good choice. Even if you get a cheap one, it's going to come down to a nice enough point that you can get into, you know, a fair amount of space, you know, small enough space. And it's big enough so that if you need to cover some ground with it and make a lot of coverage, you'll be able to do that pretty easily. Let's see. This had a little hole in it. Right there. I'm going to paint that in. Ooh, I like it. All right, there we go. There's our background around this. Now I'm hoping it's dry enough. I can... Let's see how these go. How do these go? I can draw in just a few veins. There we go. And don't make them straight. I got these a little straighter than I want. If they curve and go around a leaf, the vein has to go around. I've got 2 more things to do and we're done with this. I'm going to come over to the end here and paint all these little hairs on in all the directions. It's actually pretty easy with a liner brush. There we go. We're closing in on the end of this one. I'm going to go to my number 2 brush. What color were we? We were using Hansa yellow. So I'm going to put just a little Hansa yellow on the end of my brush. Make a few dabs here and there. Nice and thick so it sticks on and you'll be able to see it. It's going to dry a little lighter. But if we put on a nice big dollop of it, it should be good enough. We don't need, there's no need to brush, there's no need to move your brush. We just want a little dollop of it. And there you go, I think we're done. That is my hibiscus plant. Here's the one I started with. There's what I ended with. Maybe I can do it like this. Ta-da! I hope you enjoyed it. I had a great time painting this with you guys tonight. I hope to see you back here in the studio again. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you later. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.